As a Christian business owner, sometimes it's hard to not put your faith in your business and what you can accomplish. Sometimes it's difficult to not look at what you have all the way around you and realize, hey, I really don't know that I have as much control over this as I want to have, right? So, what happens is when we do that, we can only be as good as our business is. We can only emotionally be as strong as our business is, as our bottom line is. And, I've been in business for a lot of years and been very grateful for it. And I've followed the Lord for the entire time I've been in business. I haven't had a quote real job since I was, like 18, right? So, I've worked a lot, but I hadn't had a real job, So, but one of the things that's happened, I got saved at 19 years old and started walking with the Lord and really began to mentor with a great man that helped me understand a lot about life and a lot about the gospel and helped me to learn and taught me a lot. So I was really grateful and really thankful for that. But I've been in business since I was 19 years old, flipping houses. We could go down the gambit. I've done all kind of stuff, but really that's not what this is about. This is about sometimes what we'll do is in business we'll see we get a big client come in, big job, and we're so grateful, so thankful. But the problem is we go to the next. That's just entrepreneurship. That's just when you're a business. I don't know that there's another way to do it, and maybe there is, maybe there's not. I've been around billionaires with a B before, for extended periods of time, and I just thought I was doing business wrong because my whole life I was just looking for the next, right? I was looking for the next thing and just trying to figure out what the next thing was. And I was like, man, I got to be messing this up. That surely nobody is like this. Well, then you get around billionaires, and turns out they are. Hey, what's next? Let's do this because it's great. It's the next. It's like, man, I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price of admission for this particular ride in life. 39 years old now, and I've had a couple businesses fail. That sucked. A couple businesses do really, really well. So we're in a position now. It's really unique. I've had $2 in the bank account. I've had negative $2 in the bank account. I've had 200,000 in the bank account. So one of the things that I've noticed is when I was spiritually disconnected and I was more connected to my company and my business than I was the Lord, I was only as good as that bank account looked. I could only be as healthy and happy and whole as what that bank account looked. And it's a struggle because when you're an entrepreneur, you're used to being able to make stuff happen. You're used to being able to create the next, right? And hey, we're in a hole. We got to figure out. Oh, we got a surplus this month. We can invest in it. You're used to doing that. And a couple years ago, I stepped back and I was like, man, I got to just stop this crap, right? So pulled back, and now I've been so uncomfortable, and I'm in a position now that we went from doing 25K a month to doing, man, like not 25K. Let's just put it that way, 3 or 4, 5,000. And in the worldly perspective, that's irresponsible. Well, yeah, it is. But on a spiritual perspective, the Lord's been growing and stretching me in ways that He wouldn't have been able to do had I not allowed myself to get to this position. So we're in this position now, and really just believe in the Lord that He's going to continue to help us, to grow us. I'm starting a new business out of some things, and I've got a few contracts. I got some stuff that's kicking off, But throughout all of that, my faith has really just been placed right back in the Lord's hands. I had to do that intentionally. It took a lot of intent. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort on my part to do that. It took a lot, man, because I'm so used to just making stuff happen, just going and fixing it, going and figuring it out. And I've had opportunities to fall back into those old patterns in this time. And it would have been easier financially, right? Been 100% easier financially. But it would have put me back in old habits. One of the things that we see is, whenever Peter denied Jesus, he went back to fishing. Why? Because he was confident in fishing. He was a competent fisherman. He'd made a living in fishing. And what will happen is whenever we fail, fall, or falter, we'll go back to what we know because that's where our confidence is. Our confidence isn't in the Lord, it's in what we can create, do, or sustain. And when we do that, unfortunately, it puts us in a position to where if we stop being able to do, create, or sustain, we feel like failures. And that's just not who you are. If you go through life only relying on what you can create, build, or make, or sustain, or whatever, what happens if it falls? What happens if it falls apart? Do you fall apart with it? Do you fall away? Do you blame God because He didn't protect or do? I don't know. You do. Maybe you've been through that path. It's a hard place to be a business owner and to be a Christian. Because there's a part of you that you got to figure out the business. Like, you have to make money. That's how it works. You got employees, you got business, you also have the faith, and you have the Father, and you have supernatural provision and favor. And how do I allow those two to combine? Because the priest and the king, the priest is the supernatural, the religious side of the spiritual side of me, of who I am. The king is the one that creates order and creates business and all that, right? That rules, essentially. So how do I do both at the same time? And that's the journey I've been on for the last several years, is how do I do this? I wrote a book that I've not released yet called The Entrepreneurial Church. And essentially it's about how do we allow businessmen in the marketplace that are godly and Christian to support the work of the ministry in a healthy and whole way. So, sorry, I'm getting over some allergies or something. I don't know. But how do we create a business that the church can benefit from? Because one's a 501c3 nonprofit, and then the other one's a for-profit. How do we get a group of believers together that are entrepreneurial and create businesses that support the church, that support the members of the church? The members of the church work the businesses, and then anything that comes in through the church can go back out to the community, right? That's the vision, right? So how do we do that? Because I think it's just foolish for me to go plant a church in your neighborhood and then expect you to come and tithe and give and sow into what I'm doing. I don't understand that part, right? So, but planting a church in your neighborhood is beautiful, because then I can connect with you. I can have a community with you. I can help meet the needs of the community through the church. If the church were doing their job, the government wouldn't need to be as large as it is. The church has failed, and the model of church that we have has failed, and we just need to be honest about that. And what do I mean by that? We aren't doing a good job of taking care of the believers. We aren't doing a good job of shepherding the flock. We aren't doing a good job of maintaining a consistent presence in the community that builds support and helps those that are not a part of our church. We've not done a good job of that. So I think if we can be honest with ourselves, that's the reality. Now, some churches do it. Yes, they do. Not every church does it. So the church, when I say the church, understand I'm speaking the church as a whole, not your church. Your church is probably great. I'm talking the church. We've failed the people. We failed the body. We've not failed God, but we failed the body for sure. So how do we find a place of balance that says, all right, well, the gospel going forward requires effort. It requires resources. It requires money. It requires diligence. It requires all these things. But also being able to be benevolent and take care of the people that are in our communities, and knowing that you're going to get taken advantage of. If you're benevolent, you're going to get taken advantage of. That is just the name of the game. Deal with it. Get over it. Stop it. You're not entitling people when you get taken advantage of. Let them think they got over on you. But the truth is, whenever something tragic or real happens in their life, they're going to remember the consistency that you had in your life. Let them get over on you. Let them take advantage of you. Do all the things. But the reality is, when you truly love somebody, they can't take advantage of you, because you freely give just like you freely received. So just a thought, perspective. But I started this whole thing about business and creating a balance of how do we as business owners, Christian business owners, walk in life of abundance in finances, but also in spirit and authority, without having one overrule the other, and being ruled by the Spirit, not the worldliness, right? How do we do that? It's really difficult. I found it difficult. Maybe you've not, and if you figured it out, shoot me a message. Let me know. I'll buy your course, right? But I found it difficult because there's still a part of me that wants to grow hundreds of millions of dollars, and I feel I'm capable of that. I feel as though my calling is a part of that. I used to think my whole calling was a piece of that, and I've grown, I've matured, I've gotten wisdom, hopefully. But I've come to the place in my life now to where it's like I'm so content in my life, even though I'm financially worse off than I've ever been in the last 20 years, just to be honest. So part of that, I'm okay with it. Part of it sucks, man. Part of it like freaking legit sucks, right? But then there's another part of me that's so content, so happy, and so fulfilled in so many other ways. It's like, crap, if I just figure his money thing out, I'd have like the perfect life, And the Lord's using that to stretch me and grow me, and I know that. So maybe you're in that season, maybe you're in that place, and I'm not saying you can't have both. I've just not achieved both yet: fulfillment, contentment, happiness, and financial blessing. I've not gotten both yet. I will, but as of today, we're not there, and that's okay. But maybe you're in that place too, and I just want to encourage you to know that the season that you're in is not forever. Seasons are meant to change. Opinions are meant to change. Values and things like that are meant to stay steadfast. So I want to challenge you today to really seek and understand what you believe, why you believe it, and are you willing to go to bat for what you believe and how you believe? Are you willing to be priest and king? Are you willing to be taken advantage of in your business, but also be able to minister to the people that are in your company? Are you willing to be, to be to the place to where you can hold people accountable without rejecting them, hold people accountable without the kind of language that would belittle them? Those are the difficult things in business that you have to be mindful of. Because if you're a believer, you're going to be looked at as a believer that owns a business, not a business owner that's a believer. There's two different things. Because the hypocriticalness will come from those that say, well, I thought you loved God. And really, those are the people that you got to be mindful of. And you have to, those are like landmines. You got to kind of, work the path on that. And I've been accused of all kinds of things. It's like, man, my heart toward you is to love you and to help you. But I also realize that I'm not the one that you need to work for. I would do better to help you, to get you a better, different job than to let you keep working for me, because it's just going to cause strife. And I don't want that. I want to strive for unity. So let me go. Let me help you. In my media company, I've only let go one person ever in 20 years. In my construction company, I let go of 30 people in 3 or 4 months, So construction is a different animal, man. You got to that's a calling right there. But all that being said, it's like my heart and my intent was never to be hateful, mean, or rude to these folks. It's just, hey, in business, there's a certain level of quality and standard that I need, and I'm not in a position to hire that many apprentices right now. I can hire a certain level of apprentices that can come alongside me, and I can help them grow and learn and build. I can do that. I just can't hire 20. I can hire 4, 3, whatever. And you just find out what your capacity is. And it's like the little boy that was on the beach with the starfish. If you've never heard that parable, a little boy walks up and there's all these starfish that are on the shore, and he starts throwing them back in the ocean one at a time. But there's hundreds of them, and the old man walks up and he says, well, you're not going to be able to get them all. And he says, I know, but I got that one. I got that one. So that's the heart of the video today is, you may not be able to help everybody the way that you want to help them. You may not be able to walk with everybody the way that you want to walk with them. You may not be able to have the heart toward everybody that you want to have. You can have it toward one. So let's be encouraged today. Who's your one? Be with that one person. Encourage that one person. Walk with that one person. And in business, as we continue to grow and we continue to expand, if you're in a position of finances that you can sow and give to the local church and challenge the local church that you're given to use that money in a way that doesn't look like the way that they've been spending. Like, hey, let's be accountable for what we're spending. This is the Lord's money. How do we use what that is? So as you're giving, as you're sowing, we don't have a right to say, hey, you need to spend it on this. But I think we have a reasonable right that we can say, hey, I would love to know if you have a need, what I can do to sow into that need, and then hold someone accountable to minister into that need. I think that's completely acceptable. Churches, if you're in a position that you're receiving lump sums of money, which most of us are with tithes, I would encourage you, make it available to the public and let them know what you're spending your money on. Transparency builds trust. It's hard to accuse somebody when you're showing them the truth. You know what I mean? Like, it's real difficult. Well, you did. Oh, okay, I see it. Never mind. If you can account for everything that's coming in, like that's a beautiful thing, and I think that should be one of the standards for church. That shouldn't be the exception. It should be the rule that our financial statement every month or every quarter, whatever you can facilitate, is made accessible to those that are donating and giving and sowing. I think it's a huge place. And businesses, as you're growing and you're walking in ministry and you're walking with those that love you and that love the Lord, and you can be an example for those people, sow and ask the Lord, what can you do for the people that work with you to help them get to know God better? What can I do to help you get to know the Lord better through our business, through our company, through our relationship and our community? So But be encouraged today. If you got something out of it, share the video. Shoot some comments. Love to talk. Love community, and just trying to build and grow and just connect with other believers, man. So I'm excited. So, all right, y'all have a good night.